What's going on, guys? It's your boy Mike Goes Outside coming at you with yet another Adobe Lightroom Classic editing tutorial. Now, if you didn't know this, Adobe actually split Lightroom into two. Adobe Lightroom Classic, which is what I'm using, the more robust desktop version that everyone's used to, and then the other one, which is Adobe Lightroom CC. Adobe Lightroom CC is more so for mobile on-the-go users. It's definitely great, but it's, has less features, and if you definitely want to get a more professional edit on your images, I would definitely continue to use Adobe Lightroom Classic. Good news is Adobe mentioned that they're going to continue support with Adobe Lightroom Classic, which is cool because I thought when, typically when someone puts the word classic on something, they just want to like kill it off or something, but good to hear that because I love Lightroom Classic. Some background info on this image. This was taken in San Francisco, believe it or not. This was actually at Ocean Beach, and Ocean Beach has a couple of these windmills, which you typically see in Europe. And so I was riding my bike around Ocean Beach and I noticed this composition and I snapped a pic, and here we are in Lightroom. So without further ado, let's stop talking and get into the edit. I plan on making this image more of like a film aesthetic. It's kind of a style that's inspired me recently, and so that is what we're gonna go for. And to do that, follow along. It's gonna be kind of long. I kind of want to make this noob friendly, but do it as quick as I can, just because no one wants to watch a 20-minute editing video of like a pretty basic picture. Anyway, we're gonna go pretty high on the exposure, almost a full stop, about 0.8. And we're going to lower the contrast to -10 to make it look more flat. It looks like garbage right now, but we'll fix that by coming to the highlights and dragging that down all the way to -100. I'm also going to drag the blacks down to about -60. And shadows, I'm going to bring up just a tad. Whites, I'm going to bring down just a tad. And clarity, I'm going to bring up to 5. Depending on what photo you have or what style you're going for, you could go pretty gnarly. I hardly ever go gnarly on the clarity, vibrance, or saturation. Speaking of saturation, I'm going to bring that to -10. Vibrance, I'm going to keep really conservative at 5. Now you may ask, why -10, or why are you desaturating your photo? That's because, like I said earlier, I kind of want to go for that film look. And film is typically more desaturated, less contrasty, more flat, and so that's what I'm going for. All right, now here's where the biggest, or one of the biggest differences comes in, and that is the tone curve. Now if your tone curve looks like this, which by default I think that's how Lightroom comes, you're gonna have to click that little square icon there to make it look like this. Now without wasting time, I'm going to actually put a tone curve preset that I've made specifically for this image right there. And as you can see, it basically makes the image look a lot more flatter. What I mean by that is you could tell that here's the before and here's the after. The darks are more, or the blacks are more faded. And the whites are more faded. Although I don't really like the faded whites on this picture because the whites are a good amount of this picture, so I'm going to bring that rightmost point all the way up, creating this kind of check mark curve. The one point that affects the blacks is the leftmost point. So if you see that I bring it down, it brings back the detail in the blacks, but I'm not going for that look right now. I want to make this, like I said, film aesthetic. All right, guys. So yeah, that's the tone curve. I would plot points, but it usually takes me quite a bit of time, and I end up having to kind of cut the video and whatever. So that's the tone curve, guys. Hope you learned something there. We are going to go all the way down now to camera calibration, and believe it or not, this is where the biggest difference comes in, and this is one of the most underrated tools in Lightroom, in my opinion. I use it all the time on a lot of my photos. Some of my photos I'll leave it untouched, but a lot of my photos I'll mess around with the camera calibration. So here I kind of want to make the greens more dark green instead of this kind of like you know, tropical green. So we're gonna mess with the green primary and the blue primary. So I'm gonna bring the hue on the green primary to about 80. We're going balls deep on that. Okay, and I'm gonna bring the saturation down to negative 20-ish. Okay. That looks okay. I'm gonna double up on the negative 20 and go negative 40. All right. Now, looks okay, but we're gonna spice things up by moving the blue hue to about 30. And that's where it really starts to pop on the kind of dark green tones. And likewise with the blue, we're gonna drop the saturation to about negative 40. That looks pretty good. So just green and blue alone will definitely change your image big time. But we're also gonna mess with the reds. We're actually gonna go negative on the hues on the reds and positive on the saturation. So negative 20 on the hue, about anywhere from 10 to 15 looks good to me for the saturation. So here's a quick before, a little more tropical there, and then after. Just gives you that moody vibe, the, you know, film mood aesthetic. Okay, so there are a few issues that I see with this, or more so things I could do better here, and that is getting the red out of this image or out of these flowers, because it kind of is distracting, because I want the viewer's eye to kind of go to the windmill there, and the red is just, you know, I don't know, your eye wants to go there because it's just popping. Okay, also I want to make the branches and the dirt and stuff kind of brighter and more saturated, so we're going to go to the colors right here. If you don't see this, you're going to want to hit color and hit all right there. Okay, first we're going to address the red flowers, and we're going to do that by dropping the hue, the saturation, and the luminance on the reds to about negative 30. All right, and already you can see they're pretty purple. I might drop the hue down even further. Negative 74, cool. All right, that looks pretty good. And I also kind of want to change up the purples just slightly. We're going to bring the hue up to 30 something. Excuse me. Oh, I feel another one coming. Hold on, guys. Just kidding. All right, we're going to go a little bit of a saturation decrease in the purples, and then we're going to go with a luminance decrease in the purples just to make it a little darker. And my goal with this is to kind of make the purples less distracting. So I'm going to come to magenta now, drop the hue to about negative 70 something. 69. That looks good. We're going to drop the saturation to negative 10-ish. All right, and then we're going to drop the luminance negative 42. Okay. So far we kind of addressed the purples and the flowers as best as we could. Now I kind of want to bring up the saturation in the brown tones, and to do that we're going to mess with orange and yellow. Okay, and now I'm going to come to orange. We're going to drop the luminance, make the browns a little darker. We're going to go big time to the left. I'm going to desaturate that, although I said I kind of want the branches saturated, but that's okay. Follow along. And now we're going to drop the hue on the yellows, and I think this is the one that makes the greatest difference. We're going to go about negative 50. That looks good. And we're going to increase the saturation to about 35, 37. It looks good to me. And that's the thing, guys. Whatever looks good to you is, you know, your eyes ain't lying, okay? Unless you got some like color blindness or something, your eyes ain't lying, all right? We're going to bring the luminance of the yellow up quite a hefty amount, 55. It looks pretty good. And I kind of want the greens to pop a little more, and we'll do that with the green. So bring up the saturation to about 15 and the luminance to about 20. Let's do a quick before and after on the color adjustments. So here's a before and here's an after. Not bad, not bad. I like that. Nice, okay. All right, we're gonna go down to split toning. Basically what split toning does is you are able to choose kind of a color filter for both your highlights and your shadows. Now I'm gonna click here on this little rectangle and we're gonna go with this little blue preset right there. 12% saturation I think works well here. We're gonna click the other one for the shadows and we're gonna go with more of a brownish tone. 22% is what it gives you by default. I don't know what it's thinking, but we're gonna drop it down to like 9%. And here's a before of split toning and an after. I like the blue in the highlights because it makes the image feel cold, and it was pretty cold when I took this picture. So just trying to emulate the feeling, try to encapsulate the sensories of the human body in the image just by looking at it. Next level. Okay. All right. I think that's pretty much it on the global adjustments. I'm going to check remove chromatic aberration there. You don't need to know what that does. I just check it no matter what. Oh, I'm going to actually increase the sharpening as well. So I'm going to come to the details module. I'm going to go about 40 here. Masking, I'm going to hold Alt and drag to the right. Basically what you're seeing here is everything in the white is getting sharpened and the black is not affected. All right, I like that. I like that. Luminance, I'm going to bring up to 5. Basically what that does is, and you probably can't tell, is it reduces the noise. If you go pretty hefty on the luminance, you're gonna have like a smooth, silky, kind of almost painting like image, and you don't want to do that. Let me see if I could kind of emulate that. So see, when I zoom in, it kind of looks all like someone, what do you call that type of painting? Someone painted it basically. But anyway, we're gonna undo that. We're gonna undo that. I'm gonna bring color up to 100. Don't ask me why, I just always do it. I can't really notice a difference, but whatever. I ain't an expert, guys. I ain't an expert. All right, so with that being said, I think we're pretty much done on the global adjustments of the image. Now I kind of want to affect local areas of the image. So what I mean by that is I think the sky can get a little darker. I think we could get a little more contrast on the windmill to make it pop more, and I believe the bottom can use a definite decrease in exposure just to give it some more depth. All right, so with that being said, I'm gonna hit M as in Mike on the keyboard, bring up the grad filter tool. I'm gonna drop the exposure maybe half a stop there, and I'm gonna go from bottom to top here, maybe like that. And I'm going to drop the exposure kind of a bit more. I think that looks good. So before, after, kind of gives it some more depth. And we're going to do the same thing with the top. The sky looks a little too bright for my liking. I kind of want it to look almost stormy. So we're going to do that. Where do I want to go with this? There we go. That looks pretty good to me. We're going to go a little hard on the exposure, maybe 2/3 of a stop down. I'm going to increase contrast to about 25, and I'm going to drag highlights all the way down to get some more detail. You know, I think it actually looks too dark. I'm going to bring up the highlights maybe to 1/3 of a stop. I think that looks pretty decent. All right, so before and after. And now that I look at it, honestly, I'm just going to leave the exposure at 0. I think the bright backdrop looks pretty good. But with that being said, I'm still increasing the contrast and still dragging the highlights all the way to the left. Now, let's see if we could do anything special with the windmill. So I'm going to select the radial filter there, Shift M if you're into keyboard shortcuts, And I'm gonna make a quick little what do you call these things? Circle. I'm gonna adjust that to how I like it. I'm gonna bring down the exposure just a smidge, and I'm gonna increase the contrast just a bit. Now I only want this to affect the windmill. I almost said Lightroom. What are those things called? Lighthouse. I almost said lighthouse, but I just want it to affect the windmill. So what I'm going to do is erase what is getting affected on the trees. Did that make sense? No, it didn't. Anyway, I'm going to go here to brush, the top right, and go to erase, and we're going to erase the mask on the trees. And by the way, the mask is in red, so you could enable that by pressing O on your keyboard, and that just makes it a little easier to see what you're working with. And you could do the same thing with pretty much everything: grad filters, radial filters, paint, whatever. All right, okay, I think that looks good. I'm pretty sure we're looking pretty solid here, although I noticed that there's like some bird poop or something, or like graffiti on the rock here that says Golden Gate. So we're gonna Photoshop that out by using the spot removal tool. I'm gonna zoom in by pressing Control plus, and we're gonna get rid of this poop. Okay, and you could just literally drag over, you click and drag the affected areas, and Lightroom will use its like super wizard algorithms to find a good spot to replace it with. And that looks good. All right, what is up with this? It's like someone put scotch tape right there. Bam, baby. All right, guys, I think that's it. Let me do a quick comparison. Here is the left untouched, straight out of the camera raw photo, and on the right here is that super film vintage hipster hypnotic edit. Sorry guys, my vocabulary sucks. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Do you guys like what just happened? Oh no. All right, we're good. Anyway, do you guys like this style? Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think you would edit in this style? What do you guys think? Drop a comment down below. How did you like this video? Give me some constructive feedback. I'm not really good at making videos or tutorials, and I'm trying to up my game. So any constructive feedback, let me know in the comments down below. With that being said, if this video helped you, hit that like button, give me some love, hit that subscribe button, do all that social media shenanigans. Also, I have this picture posted on Instagram. Instagram is where I post most of my pictures, and I like to interact with a lot of people on there. Hit me up with the follow. If you got any questions, you could DM me there. I reply to everyone because I love you all. I'll post it right here at Mike Goes Outside. Go follow me and say hi. All right, guys. I will see you in the next video.